Welcome to Keep the Line Moving Extras, where we take things further. Here we dive deeper into leadership, sports, and business. Each week we highlight our weekly guest, providing further insights from their leadership journey. Beyond the usual headlines, we uncover what truly drives success. From strategic thinking to personal growth, to inspiring teams and leading with purpose. Here we go. KTLM Extras Week 4. This is the pod, the mini pod, where we summarize the guest from Keep the Line Moving on Tuesday, and then we take a subject from that conversation and we expand upon it for the next 5 or 6 minutes to inspire, to give you a nugget of information that's useful to you, and just to have a great story to propel you into the weekend. All right, Paula Rizzo was our guest this week. She's a media strategist, an author. She talks about efficiency, crafting your message. We begin with a story she told us of a client, and her name was Brandy.
There's a woman, her name is Brandy Doming, and she's an author. Her first book was called The Vegan 8. And her publisher came to me and said, she doesn't want to do video, really. She's a little afraid of doing video for her book launch. And we really wanted her to do video because she has a really big following on, one social media network or whatever it was. And I said to her, why are you so against it? And she said, I don't know. I'm just a little nervous about it. I'm not sure. And I said, well, let's talk about the book a little bit. Right. And so I think sometimes if you can get to the core of why the person is doing this work, it will really help. So she was afraid to be the voice or to be seen, because a lot of times authors, of course, what do? We write and we want people to read the book and enjoy it, and we don't want to have to say anything about it. But so the genesis of the book was that at the time her husband had gout, which is, an awful condition that can be connected to what you eat. And so they were eating a lot of red meat and a lot of things. And so the family was, canceling vacations because he had these awful symptoms and all this stuff. And so she found when she started to cook vegan food and vegan meals that his symptoms would go away. And I said, wouldn't you have loved to know that way before, like when this all first started? And she said, well, yeah, of course. I said, well, you're the person to do that now. How dare you keep that information from someone else? Like, you could be helping so many people who don't have to go through the road that you went down. You could tell them now. And the way you do that is by telling your story, by going on, by doing these videos. It's a public service. Be of service. How dare you keep it to yourself? And as soon as I said that, it did not become about her. It became about everyone else.
And finally, with Paula, we talk about her approach as a young professional, the essence of being a go-getter.
I always wanted to try. I always said, yes, I'll try that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I was the one who raised my hand and said, oh, okay, I'll take that story. Or, oh, okay, let me do the interview, or let me see. Or, I always wanted to try, to see. Maybe I hated it at the end of the day. I was like, it wasn't for me, but I would have tried it, and I was a go-getter. I was there. I was organized. Of course, I think that was also a big part of it, is that, I had my list, and you have to be organized, if you're working in television news, especially. A day is happening with or without you, that newscast is getting on the air or not, and I think I was always there too when things went wrong. It was kind of like good timing for me. Somebody called out sick, or I just happened to be there the day when the breaking news happened. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go put me in the control room and I'll figure it out, So to be a team player, I think was a big deal too.
Paula received some great advice from her professors at Hofstra University. And speaking of universities, we started the spring semester at NYU a couple of weeks ago. I'm very fortunate to be teaching 2 classes this semester. 1, organizations and sports. 2, senior seminar and leadership. That's a class I've been teaching for several years. So invariably, I will say at the beginning of the semester, they're probably annoyed at me already, the students. I will say, raise your hand if you want to work in sports. All the hands go up. Second class, raise your hand if you want to work in sports. All the hands go up. I do that for a reason, because I want to see how committed they are and clear they are at this point in their lives that they want to work in sports, because then I say it's very competitive. And then we craft the class along with all the lesson plans to understand why it's competitive and to give them tools to be great when they get opportunities, whether they be internships or jobs, and what differentiates them from other candidates, and how can they tell that story. And that's the point we're talking about this week on KTLM Extras. Paula's craft is to help people tell their story about their books or a CEO needing to craft a message. Well, today we're going to talk about people wanting to get in the sports world and crafting their story. So, we're going to visit this topic a lot throughout the course of the coming episodes. And today we're going to talk about this one part, knowing your story. So, all the resumes that are submitted for jobs in sports, the employer can see all that you do. You won this award, you played college basketball, you were part of this sorority, you did 16 internships in 3 years. I'm exaggerating to make a point. The resume gets you the opportunity to have a conversation and hopefully a legitimate interview. When you're in that interview, that's when you need to tell your story. It's not 45 minutes of a story. It's being able to tell why certain things resonate with you as a skill set in order to help that employer. Example, I was mentoring someone this week, not an NYU student, and he and I were talking. We had a series of conversations over the phone. And he was telling me he's a college football player and he's about to get into the real world. He's graduating in May, and he's very clear on what he wants to do in the sports world. And he's telling me about what he has done while in college. And I'm listening, and I'm going to be honest. And I would tell him this. I think I even did in my own words, which is this. He was about at a 4, right? In engaging me as somebody who's hired hundreds of people over the course of my career, he was about a 4. I was interested, I was listening, but I didn't sense any emotion, connection to the material he was talking about or just in general, right? And then he leaked this into the story. He said, "Yeah, in my job." And I said, "Hold on a second. You have a job? You're a college football player and you had a job during the fall season?" He said, "Yes, at this store, a big major chain. It doesn't matter the store, but it was a grocery store, let's say, right?" So he would go to school, he would go to football practice, and then he would go to his job at night. And it wasn't the fact that he was combining all these things, although that's very impressive. It was how he spoke about his boss at the grocery chain. He said if it wasn't for this boss working with him in a very flexible way, he never would have been able to accomplish what he accomplished on the football field and in the classroom. And his voice changed and emotion came out. And all of a sudden, where he was at a 4 in engagement in this rating system I'm using to make a point here with you today, all of a sudden now he was at an 8. And he just brought up a nugget of information that meant something to him. So I, as a future employer, because we were kind of doing a role play, I was engaged. I was listening. I wanted to know more why he was so grateful to this boss. And he said because he would work with his schedule. He rooted for him. He would listen to him, right? And they were able to come to an understanding when he couldn't make it, that he would then, make up the hours or what. He didn't go into much detail. It's how he talked about it, which drew me in. That's a story. And through this story, he was able to show me as the future employer in this role playing that he was able to go to school, full class load, be a college football player, and work a job. And I said to myself, this individual is worth listening to. And then, sure enough, he told me other stories he might not have told me had I not responded to this emotional connection he had with this individual at his job. Hopefully, this story resonates with emerging leaders and students and people that listen to this podcast on a regular basis. We will do more of this. I just wanted to share this with you on the heels of Paula's story about what she was like as a young professional. Thank you, everybody, for being part of KTLM Extras Week 4. We'll see you next week on KTLM Extras, where we'll talk about the Super Bowl. And then we'll see you on Tuesday. Keep the line moving with another great guest. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Keep the Line Moving. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Most importantly, share this podcast with your friends, family, and coworkers. It means the world to us. If you have a guest recommendation, visit our website at garganoleadership.com, where you'll also find all our archived episodes. For our marketing coordinator and the producer of this podcast, Savin Narwhal, I'm Chris Gargano. Have a fantastic week, everybody.